All right. It's finally time. I've kept you fine people waiting long enough. That was a freaking odyssey. Yeah. So, I am Cliff McConnell. I am the new king of scuff, apparently. Ooh. Uh, More than a little stressful. I'm honestly really sorry to keep you all waiting. I don't know what caused. Well, no, I know what caused it. I didn't set the goddamn OBS right. Yeah, that was more than a little stressful. But, again, I've kept you all waiting. I was gonna just sit the shit a bit here, but after that sort of delay, I'm fucking surprised people don't have fucking tomatoes ready to throw at me. So, here, let me get closer to my mic. How's that? Yeah. There's just no excuse for what I did, so, yeah. But enough about that. This is, that better? Alright. Yes, thank you, exactly. That's more what I'm expecting. Really more what I deserve after that. But, whatever the case, I think it's about time, you already saw this in the last stream when, it apparently froze on me, so, I'm just gonna go ahead and launch into another worst kept secret here, I got a fucking PowerPoint of all things ready for you. Better than nothing, I suppose. Because again, like, I didn't really want to go, what music? Uh, yeah, I didn't want to, like, I didn't want to really plot out of stuff for this stream just because, again, like, this is basically a test stream. This is not how I wanted to present myself in the world, but at the same time, like, I had to start somewhere. But, yeah. Enough blather, let's do the fucking PowerPoint already. So, observe right here. So yeah, like I said, I am Cliff McConair, musician, music teacher, licensed bounty hunter. We'll explain that a bit more in a second. So, yes, exactly. I come from the High Gain Kingdom. Just another fantasy city that had a bunch of nasty shit going on. You know, you know how it goes in there. So yeah, real lousy city. People, the crooks were ready to just bust faces, just mug people. They had free reign over the whole city. But okay, thank you for pointing that out, Shimada. But if I'm going to do that, there. But I'll explain that in a bit. So, now that that's sorted, let's get back to the story. So, the High Gang Kingdom was an absolute crap hole of a city until my father came along, who was a legendary bounty hunter in his own right. He just waltzed into the city just looking for a paycheck. But then, little by little, he started small, just getting rid of the small crooks who had bounties on their heads. Then eventually, when the oppressed population realized, oh hey, this guy's the real deal, he can actually help free us. He then, they then decided to help him out on his quest. Because again, he wasn't motivated to help people. All he wanted to do was just make enough money to possibly retire. But, luckily enough, he actually managed that. Cleaned up the city, almost single-handedly at first, but then, just, managed to, Christ, I'm rambling. So yeah, cleaned up the city. That's the bottom line we're getting at here. So, I heard that story 1,000 times growing up, and to be honest, just, I could listen to that story fucking forever, dude. Like, that's the sort of thing I wanted to do with my life eventually. Just clean up a city single-handedly, make money bashing skulls, but also helping people at the same time. It was the coolest thing ever. But of course, as we all know, sometimes dreams just don't come true. Because dear old dad did his job too well. In the modern age, no crook in his right mind would try to mess with anybody in the Highgate Kingdom. Because not only is my dad still alive and kicking, and could wake up at any time and bash any stupid crook's skull, people know that I've been training, because again, like in the first slide, I am a licensed bounty hunter myself. So, just nobody wants to commit crime, so there are no bounties to go around. However, somebody saw this coming and had a backup plan to bail me out in this event, and that was my mother. Because in the time before my dad came into her life, she was actually a barmaid, songstress. She made her living doing music herself, entertaining people at the city dive bars. And she actually still does that to this day. But now, to supplement that income, she can actually teach music as well. Which is exactly what she taught me to do. And that's where we are today. Just, streaming into your world. By, yeah, that's my goal in life here. Moving on. So, let's get into the traditional likes and dislikes. Oh, no, you didn't miss a damn thing. We barely just got started here. I'm glad you missed the odyssey that was me trying to get shit set up. And, speak of the devil, Neckery, you have her to thank for the fact that this doesn't look like absolute crap. But, let's again, my stream, so let's get back on subject. So yeah, likes, dislikes. Likes. Heavy fucking metal. This is the reason I like your world. This is the reason I haven't screwed off to my own world after however many years. Like, don't get me wrong, the music in the Highgate Kingdom is okay, but it's really just, like, get the image of your head of the sort of music you would hear in a basic ass fantasy setting. That's exactly what it sounds like. Just one dude strumming his lute, just singing about some great warrior or some shit. Just nothing special by your standards. But again, this is why I like metal. Because you can't write music this aggressive in my home kingdom. It's just out of a, like, people just don't think of this sort of thing. But moving right along, speaking of not thinking of things, I like most other music genres as well. Because, again, metal is my main thing, but any composer worth their salt doesn't stick to one genre. They can specialize in it, but if they're smart, they listen to and appreciate other genres. Hence, yeah. Yeah, JRPG time music playing 24/7. Precisely. That's exactly, you got the image right. Like, favorite subgenre of metal. Well, personally, I'm a thrasher. I like thrash. From the big four, the obvious ones, to Evil, to, the more recent favorite, Power Trip. I love them. I miss Riley, dude. But, again, metal isn't my main... Well, metal is my main thing. It isn't my only thing, let's put it that way. Like, I like symphonic. I like basic rock. I like classic 90s hip-hop. I'm not familiar with electronic, but I like some of it too. Oh, Carmine, Rose, good to see you too. Yeah, don't mind me. I'm absorbed in the PowerPoint. I'm trying to make up for lost time here. So, and again, moving on. Let's move on to my next point. I like to make music. This is precisely why, getting into genres, getting into a bunch of genres, this is, why you would want to do that. To write music of your own. And now for the two more mundane likes. I like meat, and I like to drink. Yeah, I'm a bit of a meathead at the end of the day. Just, fucking hyper-masculine, testosterone-fueled stereotype here. I don't know what to tell you. I just am what I am. So, fusion. I'm glad you asked that, because, jazz in general, I like it, but it's one of my weaker genres. Like, it's one that I don't know as much about as I would like to. Like, especially trying to figure out what's going on theory-wise. That's like trying to fucking decode messages from aliens, as far as I'm concerned. No offense to Ari if she's in here. But yeah. Let's move on to my dislikes. What don't I like? Well, number one, I dislike the fact that I can't make money bounty hunting. Because again, I wanted to be like my father. I wanted to be this powerful dude who, just helps people by messing people up. But again, I couldn't do that. So, next dislike. Modern American pop. Yeah, this is a bit of a stereotypical dislike for somebody like me, but I'll be honest, like, I just really, like, I've tried to appreciate it, but I just cannot jive with, whatever's playing in the top 40. Like, I don't like to dwell on this, because, again, I'm a VTuber, I'm supposed to be a positive dude, so wouldn't be cool of me to just spend all stream shit-talking things. So, let's move on to the next point. What you're looking at right now, what I'm wearing right now, this is actually my work outfit. This is what I wear when I'm back in my own world, teaching music. Like, don't get me wrong, I look cool, but the thing is, it's false advertising. Like, you probably looked at my design and thought, oh hey, this guy's perfectly refined. He looks like a, fancy gentleman. But, as we've already established, I am very much not. So, for those of you, who were expecting something different, I apologize from the bottom of my heart. But again, it's just, I am who I am. Like, just like Dai said, you gotta accept who you are and just roll with it. Speaking of chat, is it frozen on my end, or is it just me, or? Yeah. I'll just assume nobody's there and move on. So, up next, beer. I don't like beer. Like, I like every other kind of alcohol, but beer is just, beer's just not my thing. Like, I won't begrudge you. Like, I'll still buy you one if you like it, but still. Just not my thing. Gotta reemphasize this again. And finally, I'll be 100% honest. Like, your world has good things about it, but overall, I'm not tripping over myself. I'm not tripping over myself to move into this world, if you will. Like, I'm fine just playing music for you, just being all cool, but yeah, expecting opera singing. Sorry to disappoint, Bundle. I can't sing at all. I just write music. But, yeah. Your world has just far too many flaws for me to even consider just moving over here. However, I still appreciate the fact that I can at least cross over. Like, I can stream for you. I can, sit. 1 second. Sorry, just, Chronomate just wanted my attention real quick. But, yeah. Your world has a lot of flaws. I don't want to live in it, but I'm so glad that I can stream to it. For you guys. Especially for you guys. I fucking owe you all a debt of gratitude as far as I'm concerned. So that does it for this slide. Let's move on to the next. So yeah, another thing cool about this world. The video games. Because again, standard fantasy environment. We don't have much to entertain ourselves over in my world. Which I find it so funny that what you... Like, that's a nice little irony. The fact that what's basic in our world is escapism in yours, and vice versa. Funny how this multiverse shit works, don't you think? So, yeah. Take some video games. Guilty, goddamned gear. This is another reason I am glad I found your world. Because, again, Metalhead. Of course I'm going to like this series. The series that's so themed after heavy metal. Yeah, the game with a bunch of characters named after bands. A metalhead liking it. Stop the presses. Plus, just the wild aesthetic, the interesting story. The soundtrack, obviously, it's fantastic. Best Guilty Gear waifu. Honestly, that's 100% subjective. I wouldn't blame you for liking any of them. Like Milia, Elfelt, Ino, like, fucking Daisuke knows how to make female characters. You cannot take that away from her. But, if I had to pick one as a favorite, I would say Jam. Because, see, Jam is just such a... I like Jam for her personality. Like, the sort of woman who would cook for you after training. Like, you just gotta love it, dude. Yeah, I don't blame you for liking Ramlethal either. She's amazing. Also, sub Junie. And, felt like I might as well shout you out, too, while I'm at it. But again, I can talk about Guilty Gear for, like, 2 hours, so we're gonna move on to the next point. I just like fighting games in general. The Air Dashers, like Guilty, Multi, MVC3. The footsies-based ones, your King of Fighters, your classic Street Fighters. 3D. I'm not too familiar with them, but I like, they're interesting to get into. Like, I recently got into Tekken 7. Almost for the sole reason I wanted to play with Shimada. But, like, just as a game in and of itself, it's been pretty fun so far. So, I might branch out into Soul Calibur, Dead or Alive later on. But again, I got more Tekken to play. And, yeah. Hot take, I like Smash clones. I like Smash-style games. Besides the obvious, Smash Bros. But I have my limits. I generally prefer the ones more styled after Melee. So, I would say my favorite Smash-style game of all would be Project Plus. There goes my Nintendo sponsorship, but it's the truth. It is. If you like Melee-style gameplay, it is 100% the best game you could possibly play. And if you have wanted to dip your toes into Melee-style gameplay, it is also the one you want to try, because it has just so many features that make it easier to get into, without dumbing down the gameplay. So yeah, that's my shilling session done. But besides fighters, I also like FPSs. As stated here, I like the fast-paced arcade-style ones. Classic Doom, Dusk, Serious Sam. But you can't just, sometimes you just want to slow it down, just chill out a bit more. And that's what the, more story-based ones are like. Like Half-Life, the obvious one. Like, I have my limits. I'm not into the, what's the polite name for them again? First-person narrative games. Like, don't get me wrong, I won't begrudge you for liking them, but they're just not my thing. Because, again, I like a story as much as anybody else. But again. And next up, I like role-playing games. So the funny thing is I actually didn't like them for the longest time, but again, this goes back to me liking different kinds of FPSs to chill out. Like, there was a point where I played nothing but fighters, but that's a good way to stress yourself out. Because it's just a grind. Like, obviously the reason fighting games are just so great. Oh, wow, you cornered me. I actually haven't messed with the build engine that much. I've wanted to, though. It's been on my list. Back to what I was saying. Like, fighters are kind of stressful to beat, so eventually, I think it was Bravely Default was the first one I decided to try out. I saw it had good reviews, and I was like, sure, I'll try it out. Which, as any RPG fan probably knows, is a terrible choice for a first one. But it's what allowed me to wet my toes, and allowed me to discover other ones. Like, I would say my favorite recent one was Dragon Quest XI on Switch. It just has such a fantastic gameplay loop. Like, it just feels so classic but so modern at the same time. Yeah, I'm not a professional game reviewer, is that obvious yet? And then finally, the Metroidvanias. The games where you just explore a map, gather pickups, try to progress. I love that shit. Like, I would say, to loop back to another bullet point, one of my favorite games of all time, Metroid Prime. I could replay that game once every year and never get sick of it, 100%ing it all the time. That is just an absolute masterclass of a game, and nobody can tell me otherwise. Not that that's a controversial opinion, but, yeah. Just a great game. That's another one that I could gush about for hours. But, yeah. Again, I also like the Odyssey one. Especially watching Corpse, she's made me want to try Axiom Verge eventually. Yeah, Metroid Prime 4. Let's hope no news is good news. Where does Serious Sam stand in it? I mean, I thought it was a boomer shooter, but I don't govern who names what game, what subgenre, so, I don't know. I just like it. Yes, I am a Guilty Gear player. It's amazing. However, big disclaimer before I move on to the next slide. I like these games, but I never claim to be good at them. See, I'm not a professional level player at any of this. So, and as a matter of fact, I'm kind of a scrub. But again, like, I just like the content of it. I like, just, playing, and, it's just fun to mess around with. Anyone buffering? I freaking hope not. Then again, the chat's been janky for, quite a bit, so it might be that. Let's move on to the next slide. So, this is the last slide, actually. This is what I plan to do on stream. So, let me take a sip real quick. Okay, it's working for everybody else after the disaster that was the first go around that had me fucking nervous. So, yeah. Whatever the case, so this is what I plan to do on stream. As a music guy, it only makes sense that I would want to do music on stream. Makes enough sense, right? So, what I plan to specialize is, well, if I'm being honest, I probably arrange these out of order, because number one on the agenda would probably be this right here, the composition, arrangement, mixing tutorials. Because that's really what I find fun. And, it's what I would probably be able to commentate to the best of my ability. But, that said, these are still in the plan, the Reaper tutorials and the music theory tutorials. Because again, that would make it significantly easier for you to follow along with my composition streams. And then finally, obviously, yes, Rose, music theory. Because again, I think I would actually like for, the thing is, music is actually significantly easier than people give it credit for. My motto is, if you can count to 4, you can learn to write your own music. It's honestly that simple. but we'll get into that later on. And finally, to close off the PowerPoint, what I plan to do on stream is the occasional game streams. Like in a hypothetical 3-day-a-week schedule, I would maybe go for like one out of 3 would be my aim. Because again, I'm really not too confident in commentating over games, but I can probably talk about music. Probably. Don't want to get overconfident here. That's already messed me over once. Ableton and Cubase. So, if I'm being honest, I'm really over-specialized. Reaper is all I've been using. But the thing is, the blessing of streams is the fact that, the blessing of DAWs, the blessing of workstations is the fact that they all more or less function the same way. Just, they might have a different name for, what you want to do, depending on, how it's set up. So yeah, I think that about wraps it up for, the PowerPoint. So, I believe it's time for me to jump into what is hopefully the meat and potatoes of this stream, and what will hopefully be a better first impression than any of this shit was. So, I'm going to put up the loading screen, and if you will bear with me one last time, let us move on. Alright, take a nice look at this. If I have it my way, this is going to be most of what you see on my stream. This right here is my weapon of choice. This is Reaper. This is where the magic happens. So, I've got a lot to explain, but at the same time, what's in the cards is mainly Reaper tutorials, so I don't want to reveal too much at once. So, what I plan to do is, set echo. Oh, I see what's happening. Okay, let's, oh. Well, no, it's not Reaper for the music, it's, see, what's happening is, the workstation is also capturing my mic. There's probably some way to fix that, but, I think I'm in too deep now. Alright. I'm into the microphone, the main microphone, so, sort of bad out a bullet hole, but we'll see. Here, maybe that'll, kill the echo a bit. Well, the thing is, I don't want to be in the program. This is what I'm trying to show you here. And, to answer T4, N3, I actually, don't use contact. No particular reason why, just, not what I'm trying to. Is, okay, is the echo still going on, or, like, did I manage to get rid of it, or? Here, let me try one more thing. Oh, the echo's gone. Oh, sweet. Alright. So, if that's the case, then without further ado, let's actually make some fucking music. So, the kind of song I'm planning on writing right now is, what we're going to do is, I decided that in order to not lose you all, I should probably do something simple. So, I decided to go for possibly the simplest genre there is. Pop punk. Just something basic. Just something theoretically and arrangement-wise incredibly simple. I say that and there's still 22 tracks, but believe me, that's still on the low end. That said, still a tiny bit of echo. Fuck it. If it's within acceptable boundaries, I'll just keep going. So yeah. We're just gonna move along. Sup, mouth. Yeah, we're gonna make a pop punk song. Because, as far as I'm concerned, that's theoretically simple enough that I won't lose everybody, and also will actually allow me to show off what's going on. So, what, generally, in a rock context, if you are wanting to create music out of thin air, Cliff Karaoke win. Quite a while. I got a lot of practice to do before I'm comfortable singing on stream. But, at any rate, generally if you're wanting to make a rock song out of thin air, you're gonna want to start with a drum track. Which brings me to one more thing that I forgot to mention. Every plugin that I'm about to show you is actually free to download. My logic was, if you wanted to follow along with the VOD and try to get your feet with this yourself, I wanted to drop some names so that you had some idea what you might want to play with on your own time. Especially if all it'll cost you is... if all it'll cost you is just some bandwidth, then that's acceptable, right? Yes, very kind of me. Because again, composition is simple, so you might as well make it extra simple. So, the first program we're going to be messing with will be... Oh shit, it's not showing up. Yes, Easy Drummer 2 is fantastic, but it's what I usually use. But again, I wanted to focus on free programs for this. Well, that's kind of a problem. My plugin isn't showing up. The jank continues. Well, whatever the case. So, the program I'm going to use is called MT Power Drum Kit 2 by Manda Audio. If you're familiar with Easy Drummer 1, it's essentially a freeware clone of that. So, that's something you're probably going to have to get used to if you use a lot of free programs. There are a lot of freeware clones out there of various commercial plugins. But again, okay, I'm really tempted to switch this to desktop capture, but I'm not trying to do that without fucking doxing myself, so I think we're just gonna stick with this. Yeah, that's the other thing. I'm the king of plugins you've never heard of. Like, on top of just looking out for free shit, I'm a bit of a bargain hunter, too. Like, most of the stuff I use that isn't free, it's at least incredibly cheap. Okay. So. I know for a fact you can't see the window, but let's see if you can hear the audio. Shit. Oh, here we go again. Okay, let's try this other program. Yeah, debut curse just keeps on rolling through. I'll be lucky if I have an audience at all after this. Let's, see. Audio interface brand, I'm using a PreSonus audio box i1. That's, that's what my microphone's plugged into. Yes, I know you don't hear anything, that's what I'm trying to fix at the moment. Alright, we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but I don't really have a choice. Tell me if you can hear this. You hear that? Gotta wait on the delay first. Yep. Fantastic, you hear the guitar. Which is kind of a problem because, like I said, I wanted to start with the drums. And, yeah. Fuck it, I guess we're starting with guitar. So, the program I am using for guitar. So, yeah, despite the fact that I like metal and mainly write in it, that's a bit of a fun fact. I don't use any live instruments at all. It's all sample plugins. Which would have gotten me laughed out of the room about 5 years ago. But we live in the modern day. There are ungodly amounts of fantastic free sample plugins that, if you know how to use them, can actually sound really good. So, we're going to start with the guitar. What I'm using here is a fantastic plugin called Metal GTX by Unreal Instruments, which is the quote-unquote company name of a very kind Japanese gentleman by the name of Purple Shikibu on Twitter. He specializes in making free sample libraries. Not just guitar, he has a bass library, he has a koto library, a bunch of other weird Japanese ethnic instruments. He's just an amazing dude. And you're gonna be hearing me sing his praises a lot on stream. But again, mainly we're gonna be messing with Metal GTX here. I really wish I could show you the, interface, but that would require me to actually set up another OBS scene mid-scene, and that's not fucking cool. So, just use your imagination. Scarby and Promeny. I've actually never heard of those two companies. My commercial sampler of choice is actually the Ample Sounds. I would say, if you're gonna go for any commercial sampler, I would say go with those. But be careful which sample library you use, because they're sort of designed to gel with different genres. So you would need to pick one specifically for metal, one specifically for jazz, another one for basic rock. It's a bit of a minefield, which I only know because I tripped over that first hand. But fortunately, this was after I discovered Metal GTX, which, as you can imagine, specializes in that sort of thing. So, no harm done in the end. Alright, that's enough waffling. Let's actually write some goddamn music. So we're gonna move this MIDI item. So this is how you write music in digital audio workstations. You make these funny little MIDI items, and you don't see it, but what I see is a piano roll. So the function of this is you click notes into this piano roll. This would be a lot easier to explain if I'd actually set up OBS right, but that's just what happens. You'll just have to assume I'm a wizard or some shit. But I'm just gonna click some stuff in and you're gonna hear it. That's not the key I want to use. Yes, invisible piano roll. If you didn't want scuff, you shouldn't have come to a debut stream, my friend. So, you can't see it, but actually, on second thought, would you guys mind if I just stop the stream for a second, just so I can switch to desktop capture, or would you rather I just move on like this? Yeah, very convenient for me to ask questions when there's a chat delay, but I gotta do what I gotta do here. So, while I wait for that, just to fill the dead air. So, another thing I'm going to mention is, what you're going to listen to is going to be, I'm actually not writing a straight pop-punk song. My plan is, because mainly I do metal, so what I figured is, the signal chain's gonna end up looking a bit more like it's gonna end up sounding more like a day to remember than anything at the end. So, die. It isn't usually worse than Twitch, it's just really shitting the bed today for some reason. So, alright. So, I'm going to momentarily stop the recording, and I'm going to switch over to... Alright, I gotta not fuck this up. I gotta make sure I don't end the stream accidentally. Alright, so, are we back? Do you see me? Do you hear me? Alright, fantastic. So, this isn't ideal, but I've elected to switch to display capture. Hardly ideal, but otherwise... And you still can't see the goddamn piano roll. Good lord. Yeah, I'm dragging the window, but... Or, no, there we go. Dumbass, I put it in the wrong order. Okay, now you should finally see the piano roll. This is where the magic happens right here. Let me take a sip real quick. Yes, perfection. So, if you look to the left of this window, you will see keys, just like on a piano. Because, since time immemorial, this has been the composer's sort of baseline instrument. Just has the largest range, generally the easiest to play. So, that's why they went with piano. I am completely talking out of my ass. I don't know if that's why they went with it, but... whatever the case. If you click a key, it plays the sample. Click another key, another sample. Click that key, another sample. But here's another funny little gimmick about Reaper in general. Other DAWs might do this, but I know, this is a feature that I know is in Reaper. Shit. Just a moment, I gotta set something up so I don't dox myself here. Pardon me. So, if you look at the piano keys right here, they now have, instead of note names, they have function names. This is a nice little gimmick of any given sample library. Most of the good ones use something called key switches, where if you hold down a key or press a key as you play a note up here, it will play a different sort of note. So, for instance, Metal GGX's standard patch is standard, down pick. Just a basic articulation that you would want to hear if you were trying to sing, or trying to write a part. However, observe what happens if I press the mute down key switch. It's playing palm mute samples instead of sustains. And same if I click the pseudo legato key switch. This is a rough approximation of what would happen if you played notes without actually picking them, simply pressing the fretboard. Which is, it has its uses, especially if you're writing Van Halen-style tapping solos. So that's enough of the explanation. Let's bring it back to sus down. So, with all that explanation out of the way, we're going to actually write a chord progression. Yeah, jumping from tech explanation to composition. Again, this is just a sample platter. I give you a combo platter here of all the stuff you can expect from a music stream. I promise later on they'll get more specialized and more focused, but for the moment, I'm just sort of jumping around here. I would ask you to just stop me if you want something else explained, and you're still free to do that, just obviously it's going to show off like 2 minutes later. Shouldn't stop you though if you still want to learn. So, what I'm about to click in is a basic chord progression called the Andalusian Cadence, which is hard to explain to somebody who doesn't have a background in music, but all you gotta know is you start at a root note and then just go down the scale. It sounds like this. Except I'm still in major, dumbass. Okay, so this is another function of Reaper that I'm fairly certain. Okay, let me move the window over here so you can actually see it. Handy little function here. If you want to, it'll make composition easier if you're just starting out. If you press this key snap button, it will snap to a certain key signature. Out of the box, it only has basic, major, and minor. Thank you, Mud. I'm glad you came anyways. I know this is sort of in the weeds. Again, I promise later streams are going to be a lot more basic, easier to follow. But again, I'm just improvising here. So, out of the box, Reaper only provides basic major and minor scales, but I have an add-on that allows me to snap to several scales, obscure and common. But we're going to stick to a common one. We're going to stick to basic minor, otherwise known as the alien mode. I'll explain that in a basic tutorial later on. So, back to the Andalusian Cadence. This is what it sounds like. That little flutter wasn't supposed to happen, but mouse sensitivity. So, let's actually click in some notes. Yeah, that sounded lovely. Expect to hear a lot of that if you're actually planning on composing music yourself. So, this is what the chord progression actually sounds like. Very basic, very common. You've probably heard that before in several other songs, but again, basic is what we want. Well, it's what I want for this purpose anyways. Because I'm already losing you enough. So, if we're doing a pop-punk sort of idea, then what we're going to do is something called a power chord, which gives me cause to show you another cool feature of Reaper. Another add-on that I don't quite remember where I got it from, that allows you to insert scales, chords, and arpeggios. Basic scale runs, chords, and arpeggiated chords. So, for this purpose, we're going to want to put in a dyad, specifically a 5. This is what's commonly known as a power chord. And it sounds like this. Yeah, it doesn't sound very powerful without distortion, but that's for later in the signal chain. So, let's just copy this note over a couple of times. Bum note, watch out. So, we're going to copy this over just once. Bring it down to the next note in the scale. Copy it over again. Next note in the progression. And one last time. Last note in the progression. Yes, Fruity Loops, FL Studio. Very nice stuff. And it's probably one that I should be using considering what I do. Because Reaper's real killer feature besides its customizability is its live monitor. So if you play live instruments, this is unquestionably the workstation you want to use. Whereas FL Studio is generally better for what I want to do. But I've been using this workstation for 10 years, so it's a little late for me to try out other things. So, back to business. Let's see how this sounds. Yeah, sounds like a basic-ass power chord progression. Let's see if there's something more interesting I can think of. So, if you have a bass line like this, and you're thinking, man, I gotta make that more interesting somehow, the first thing you should probably do is just think of a rhythm. So, here's how I like to do it. If I have a basic skeleton of a riff like this, then what I would want to do is turn the metronome on, and turn it up quite a bit because by default it's rather quiet. And we'll highlight this part, and we'll loop it. So, we'll just give it a beat. Yeah, that sounded silly, but that's actually a very common tactic. Just scat out songs, and just keep scatting until you actually think of something cool. However, I feel like I'm taking way too long doing this, so I'm going to instead just stick to the da 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 da. So we're gonna get rid of this. Whoops. And let's see how this sounds. Maybe I should turn the BPM up a bit. Okay, viewer participation time. Throw out a number between 150 and 180. Any random number. Anyone at all. You didn't see anything. I had to bring my OBS back up. Yes, I do need to do that. Okay, 160, 180, 162, 173. Neko, that's not between... Nice try. You know what? Neko's the reason this stream isn't a complete disaster anyway, so let's meet halfway. We'll go with 169. How's that sound to y'all? Sounds cool to me. So, let's give this riff a little more variety, because obviously that didn't sound very interesting with just a stage. Which unfortunately brings us to a something that kind of sucks about working with key switches, depending on what sort of device you're running on. You may not have to do this on your machine, but I do. So, logically, the way you think key switches would work would be... Excuse me a moment. The way you think key switches would work would be... You would think you could just click it on the same beat as the note, and it would work. So, we'll click them in, and let's make these palm mute. Why not? Copy it over. Let's see how it sounds. So, as you noticed, that didn't sound even remotely what it was supposed to sound like. Because, on my machine at the very least, I have to run these key switches before the note I want to affect. No, I didn't want to copy it over. I wanted to drag it over. Let's see how it sounds now. Much better. Significantly better. But that's another thing that sucks about it. If you want to loop a part, it'll kill the key switch. It'll just screw it up all over again. Which makes it kind of a pain in the ass to work with, but when you get sounds this good for free, it's hard to complain. So, now that we figured that out, let's do largely the same thing we did before, except... my mistake. Forgot to dehighlight that part. So now, we take our notes, turn the key snap back on, and we mold it to fit our progression. Just double checking to make sure that's something you're gonna watch out for if you're copying and pasting measures out. Is that if you're not careful, you may still have these key switches highlighted, which means it'll fire off different samples, and you probably don't want that. So ensure that only the actual musical notes are selected. So, next up, last one. Snap. Let's see how it sounds. Wow, that was a bit of a mistake. So, this is our culprit here. There we go. One note off. I forgot to enable key snap on that one. Okay, that's not right. So, as you may have noticed, the key switches are misfiring again, in spite of me taking that precaution. It's incredibly strange, but again, this is a free program, so that's sort of the order of the day with the free stuff. You're gonna have to expect a little jank. But again, you can get sounds this good for free. So, I'd say at the end it's more or less worth it. But I don't want to keep you all night, so we'll just roll with it this way. Yeah, it sounds more creative that way anyways. So, we'll just call it a day there. Not the entire stream, but just, we'll call that a riff. We'll just write based off of this. So, you may have noticed. This doesn't sound like any rock guitar you've ever heard. And that's because this is a direct input sample. Now what that is if you see those big square, rectangular, black things on the body of any given guitar, that is a pickup. It is a magnet designed to pick up the sound that the guitar makes when you strike it. And fresh off the pickups, it would sound like this. However, that's only the beginning of the signal chain. You're going to want to add significantly more if you want to get a proper tone. So, what you're going to want to do, in that case, is you're going to want to add an entire signal chain. So, in order, you're going to want to add an overdrive first. This right here is an overdrive pedal. This is the first part of the signal chain. I'll explain what it does in a bit. I'm just gonna pull up a preset here. Now, next up, we're gonna want an amp sim. And today we're going to use, yet again, a free one. We're going to be using Lapoo Live 456. So, pull-in amplification, the Lapoo amp sims. These are essentially the first name in free amp sims. They have been for almost a decade now. Now, the unfortunate thing is, the kind gentleman behind these amp sims has basically fallen off the face of the internet. His original blog is no longer online. However, these plugins are still very widely distributed, still very easy to grab if you want them. Which is a good thing because these are fantastic to this day, especially if you pair them up with a tube amp simulator, tube power section simulator. So, to explain why I need this, the main way that this amp sim shows its age is that it only emulates what's called the tone stack. It doesn't emulate what's called the power section. So, you get a basic tone, but you don't get the realistic je ne sais quoi that you would get if you were playing over an actual tube amp, which is what this plugin is for. Now, ideally you would want to set this up a little more, but we're running low on time, so we're just gonna leave it at that, and add possibly the most important part of the signal chain, the cabinet simulation. And for the cabinet simulation, we use what's called an impulse response loader, which loads impulse responses, which are wave files that specifically are designed to emulate guitar cabinets. Yes, tube amps really do add warmth to anything, but I do not have the luxury of dropping $3,000 on a tube amp. And neither do most other people, which is why amp sims have become the order of the day. Anyways, normally I would actually want to use... Now, usually you would want to use a custom preset amp sim, a custom impulse response for this, which there is an absolute world of online. But you are going to, that would require me basically doxing myself because I keep them in a folder that has some rather personal information in it. So, we're just going to go with a preset here and pray that it sounds good. And then, finally, we'll run this off with an EQ. But before I do that, you'll see down here that this has its own built-in equalization, which you can use instead of an EQ. And as a matter of fact, I will for the most part. Just don't forget this is there. So, what am I going to do with this EQ, you ask? Well, I'm going to get rid of one particular frequency that can absolutely ruin your guitar tone if you're not careful with it. But before I do that, let's hear how it sounds now that I've added the signal chain. I'll just put this down just in case so I don't blow out your ears. Oops, a little too quiet. Look at that, it actually sounds like a guitar. Isn't that fantastic? It's amazing. Although that said, oh. Whoops. I was about to say it sounds a little too roomy, but, the room is not on. So, let's get on to the last order of business. There is one particular frequency. Yes, this is where the magic really happens. Also, hello, Leon and Alice. Good to see you. Although it's good to see all my viewers. Just, not just the VTubers. Don't get me twisted. But, yeah. Now, that's the payoff there. That's your reward for bearing with me as I go through my boring-ass explanation. It actually sounds like a freaking guitar that I recorded myself, despite the fact that all I did was click my mouse a few times. That is the wonders of modern technology. So, last order of business. We are going to get rid of one particular narrow frequency that could possibly absolutely murder your guitar tone and make it unlistenable. And that is 3K. If you work with heavily distorted guitars, you are going to learn to fucking despise 3K. It is the worst. Allow me to prove it. Okay, so it's not quite as noticeable as it would be if I had the ability to solo a frequency, but believe me, this sounds like shit. You don't want it in your tone. So, just dip it down a bit. I'm actually being more subtle with it than I usually would be, but it's really not that bad in this particular setup. They probably accounted for that in the preset. So, just get rid of it. Sounds nice and clean. So, with that done, the next order of business will be to copy this signal chain. Because we are about to do what we in the metal business call double tracking, which is you play the same thing twice over to add thickness to the guitar tone. So, just paste it all over here. Now, the trick requires you to pan your guitar tone. In other words, have it emphasize one ear instead of the other. So, rest in peace, mono stream viewers. So, the usual order of business would be most people like to pan it all the way to 100, but that's just going to annoy your headphone listeners. Because if you only got one working headphone, that means you're basically boned. So, my way of getting around that is I only pan to 90%. That way, you can still hear just a little bit of the tone. Now, whoops. So, we copy this part over. Now, check this. Whoops. Wow, I did something severely wrong there. Yes, your left ear did enjoy that. I was making a point, Ty. Wow. That explains a lot. So apparently this track is where this track should be. Fortunately, we can fix that very quickly. So we'll bring this over here. Bring this back over here. So, yeah, even when I know what I'm doing, I'm still getting kind of stuck. Yeah, this is another function, folders, because if you look up here, it's a bus. This allows you to process multiple tracks as if you were processing only one. So. Alright, bear with me a second, I gotta rearrange my tracks too. Make sure to name your tracks, people, otherwise you are going to get lost in the woods completely. And just like that, we are back in business. Now, let's see how it sounds. And the scuff continues right to there. Alright, that's a single chain pasted once again. Now, if I did everything right, bus and group track, as far as I'm concerned, they're more or less the same thing. Just, bus is the parlance that the person I learned to mix from calls it, so, yeah, they're the same thing, effectively. So, repan this. Now, finally, sounds a lot more full, right? A little more lively. And that is why you double track a guitar. Now, with all that out of the way, let's move on to the bass. So, there are a lot of ways you can approach bass lines, but in rock and metal, bass doesn't tend to get all that much respect, for one reason or another. So, we're going to do the cliched bass follows a guitar sort of bass line. More or less. So, let's just insert a new MIDI item, like this. There we go. There's the key switch map for this particular plugin. And Yeah, apparently there wasn't any risk of yobs. Fine by me. So, let's write our track finally. Whoops. Yeah, silly me, I forgot that we were still using a guitar single chain. Which is actually what we want in one case, but not this one. So let's copy all this over to this track called Dirty. This is what's called split bass production. And we'll put on a preset that was designed for bass for this. Because while this is generally meant for guitar, there are a lot of bassists that like to use guitar effects for bass. Because it sounds good. If it sounds good, do it. That's the motto of all great people. So. Now, let's see what it was actually supposed to sound like vanilla. That's too low. That's better. Yeah, that's a funny thing about. Actually, I don't think that particular plugin had even that. It just had the default Sforzando interface, which reminds me I never explained Sforzando. So, for the kind Mr. Man who asked me about Contact, Sforzando is why I don't use Contact. Sforzando is basically a free version of Contact. Free and sort of open. It's not completely open source, but the licensing is very generous, very easy to like you can basically do anything with it except deconstruct it, which means it's automatically not Stallman friendly, but for most musicians who don't care about that sort of thing, it will suffice very well. So, let's write our bass line. I'm thinking just simple quarter notes, just so we're not completely imitating the guitar. It's not usually supposed to cut out like that, but these things happen sometimes. Let's hear how that sounds. Skeuomorphic. This ties back into me being a meathead. I actually don't know what that word means. Yeah. I somewhat know what I'm doing with music, but definitely not with obscure English words like that. Which is funny because I've actually memorized several of them. My personal favorite being Callipygian. You can look that up on your own time. So, I don't feel any particular need to really. I don't particularly feel any need to mess with the key switches. I just like the down switches. Not the least reason being we're kind of on the clock here. So, this right here is the clean bass track. But you can do more. So, the first design concept of making items represented. I see. Then, yeah. That's actually sort of the order of the day with especially amp sims. Like, they all are designed to look like actual guitar amps. Because again, that's what most people want. So, next order of business. We're going to add a little mixing to this. A little extra mixing. So, for a clean bass, we're almost done. But there are two things you want to do. You want to equalize it a bit, and then compress it a bit. So, for the bass track, what you're going to want to do is high pass it at, we'll say, yeah, we'll go 40 hertz this time. There's a usual better number for that, but we'll see. Again, on the clock. Now, the next thing you want to do is rather aggressively scoop the mids. At least the way I do it. Because again, this is bass. You don't want a lot of mids in there. And, actually, no, I think that'll do for the moment. Let's see how it sounds. That's a lot better. Now, just remember, the point of mixing is we're supposed to make them all sound good together in a mix. So, you may listen to my mixing decisions and think, wait, why did you do that? That didn't sound very good. The thing is, you gotta remember the context. Because again, these are all supposed to be playing with each other and coalescing into a nice little package. So, next order of business, we're going to compress the mix. And for this purpose, we're going to break out the safe compressor. So, those of you who don't like Skynet-style central server sort of things, look away. Because ordinarily I wouldn't use this, because this plugin's particular gimmick, semantic audio. This company's gimmick is they make freeware, but it has a cloud set of presets, where if you give it a setting and then type in the sort of feeling you're going for with that setting, you can upload it to the cloud, and then other people who type in that same descriptor can then use the preset whenever they type the descriptor. Very technologically impressive, but again, if you're the sort of person who's paranoid about that sort of thing, then this is definitely not what you're looking for. But it's simple and quick, plus I've already uploaded a preset myself. So, we're going to bring this up, and we're going to bring up metal bass. So yeah, because this is actually what you want. Yes, it is pretty cool, but again, there are certain people out there who would see this as surveillance. Weird people. Myself included. But in this case, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, because it sounds good. So, back on subject, compressor on. Compressor off. You'll notice it sounds more leveled out, a little more punchy, which is what we want. Now, finally, this step's more or less optional, but it's what I want to do. We are going to bring up the impulse response loader again. And we're going to load up an impulse, which I softney or hardney. Well, as you saw here, this is more of a softney. I really need to experiment with that a bit more, but for this purposes, we're using a softney. Because I'm sure hardney could work in certain other contexts, but hardney, we're not sure. Anyways, I'm going to throw up a loading screen, because A, I need to load up my impulse, which again is in a folder that's badly named. And actually, no. I'm just gonna switch impulses. So, loading screen, 1 second. And we are back. Pardon the delay. And, yes, Die, you are 100% correct. That waiting screen is scuff as fuck, but... Again, I'm just getting started here. This will probably be a good time to mention that there's probably not going to be, another stream for at least a week after this, because... I mean, I'm having a good time, and if you guys think I have potential, I think this would be about time to gather some more resources, pay some more people, actually get my fucking OBS shit sorted out, so the next stream will not look this scuffed. So, yeah. If you're willing to stick with me, I promise it'll pay off for you. But anyways, back on subject. I have loaded up a bass cab impulse. Because basses are just like guitars, they function exactly the same way. Ergo, you can play them the same way. So, the impulse response I'm using here is by a undeservedly obscure free impulse response production company called Devil's Lab, and this is one of their 2 bass cabinets, Duat. So we're just gonna stick with this tone right here. And before I forget, put the balance to 100 left so that it's the only one playing, because these were designed to be more or less set and forget. There are 2 classes of impulse responses, set and forget ones like this one, and others that are designed to be experimented with, combined, and customized so you can get a sound you truly want. But for a beginner, and for somebody trying to make something quick like this, then set and forget is what you want. As a matter of fact, I'm not even going to click any of these. I'm just going to stick with tone 1 and pray it sounds good. So let's see if it does. And mercy me, it does. Fantastic. Which means we can unmute this particular track. So, the way this works is... The way it's supposed to work is you're supposed to have a already recorded DI bass, and you're supposed to simply copy and paste it and then process it differently. But in this context, that's not going to work. So what you're going to do instead is we are going to send the audio from this track, and then give it to this track, and this will play the same audio as here, except processed in a different way. Like so. You just click route, drag it over to here. Except I can't do it that way, whoops. Wow, that was a bit of an oversight. I forgot about the fact that, if I send it as it is now, it will not be the DI anymore. It will be as it was affected by the cabinet, amp simulation, equalization, compression, all that. So I can't do that way. So, we're gonna improvise a bit here. Instead, I'm going to take the overdrive and maybe bring up the gain on that a little bit. The overdrive that's not there, so let's add it. Dr. Drive, because conveniently enough, it has a plugin specifically designed for bass, clay bass. Actually, on second thought, it sounds good enough like that, so we'll roll with it. Now let's see how it melds with the guitar. So, yeah, I'd say that sounds pretty nice so far. You must never know that I'm actually just a torso. But back to business. That's enough fun. That's how that happened to make sounds, so. Now we're going to go back to what I should have done in the first place and make a drum track. This is why we didn't hear anything. So, first of all, let's introduce this properly this time now that you can see the interface. This is MT Power Drum Kit 2. It's pretty much free Easy Drummer 1. So, the reason you didn't hear anything when I tried to click it in was because I have it muted due to the way I'm processing it. So, let's turn these back on. I can show you what it sounds like. If I didn't click off of it like a fucking moron. Now, observe. Kick drum, snare drum. Toms. Hi-hat. Yes, these are damn good for free plugins. They don't just look like it. Because you can't just be a pretty face in this industry. You gotta have some actual meat to you. As a matter of fact, there are free plugins I use all the time that actually don't even have graphic user interfaces at all. They just use the stock one that Reaper gives you. And they're still fantastic. I'll go over those in another stream. So, let's continue testing our cymbals. Cymbal 1. Cymbal 2. Ride cymbal. And finally the China. Breakdown! So yeah, if you've ever wondered why, what cymbal they're playing when they're doing those stupid deathcore breakdowns, that's the one. So, anyways, you may have already noticed down here, I have already pre-bussed these particular drums. The kick drum, the kick, snare, toms are all bussed to this one. Because while this kit sounds great for most applications and can sound good for metal if you are willing to finagle with it, I actually don't quite use it for that purpose. But we'll get to that as soon as we actually decide on a track. So, we have a basic-ass 4-measure song. Let's actually write a song. Which, conveniently enough, you can find in the Groove section. Because this isn't just a sampler, it's also a songwriting tool. Isn't that nice? Now, T4N3 mentioned earlier Easy Drummer 2, which is a vastly upgraded version of this that has much more robust songwriting tools. However, this will do just fine for this purpose. If all you're doing the basic stuff. So, we're gonna want to look in 4/4 grooves, 160 to 250 BPM, because we've already decided 169. Nice. So, I think we're gonna go for an 8th note close hi-hat feel. Let's see how this sounds. Yeah, we'll go with it. So, all you gotta do to add it to the track is drag it over to the track conveniently labeled MT Power Drum Kit 2. Now, let's see how all 3 of these sound in context. So, yeah, you probably noticed the drums are quiet as fuck, but we'll fix that when we get to it. The more pressing matter is, it sounds good, but not particularly doesn't meld well with metal-type instruments. At least, not in this context. So, this is where our other plugin we're going to be using today comes in. Allow me to introduce, if it'll load, there it is, the Pandy drums. This is a plugin based on samples from a very old forum. Probably the Andy Sneap forum. because that's where all the metal mixers hung out back in the day. And these were samples that were specifically designed to be used in metal productions. And conveniently enough, it has a drum map that is very compatible with our NT-powered drum kit. So, here's where the real money happens. If I take this, copy it, and then drag it all the way up to the Sean Pandy multi-drums, you will hear something like this. Oh, whoops. Yeah, I forgot I pre-processed these drums. Silly me. Yeah. Then again, this isn't a mixing tutorial, this is just a basic smattering. Plus, we're running out of time anyway, so we'll just roll with it. Yeah, drum mixing stream, upcoming. Keep an eye out for it. So, let's play this again. Sounds pretty sick, but you'll notice. That's sort of the downfall of the Sean Pandy drums, if that's like a minute to load again. You will notice, once it comes up, it does not include cymbal samples. It only includes shell samples, the kick, the snare, and the toms. But again, these are good sounding kick, snare, and toms. But now let's bring things full circle. You'll notice I named this track Shells, Ignore. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine these two sample sets. I'm going to use the shells from the Sean Pandy drums, and I'm going to use the cymbals of the NT-powered drum kit. And it's going to sound something like this. Could probably use a little more processing, but sounds pretty nice to me. Let's start by bringing up the snare a bit. Pretty nice, pretty nice. Now, if this were actually like a mixing tutorial, I would probably add some low end to that snare, but again, time's of the essence. So, let's hear how this final track sounds altogether. Well, final-ish. This is an error near a finished track, but again, this is all a sampling. This is just a slapdash smorgasbord. So here's the massive air quotes final mix. Bass was too damn loud. Here's the final mix. So, I would say that sounds rather nice for just a starting little start. Because obviously, what you would want to do is you would want to keep going, build upon this, write an actual song out of it. But again, this was just introducing you to the process. This was introducing you to what my process looks like. What the process of writing a song looks like. What a stream for me will look like once I know what the hell I'm doing. So, I think with that, I would say we've had quite a bit of fun, quite a bit of scuff, but I believe it's time for us to say our goodbyes for the night. Because the stream has gone on quite some time, and I think I've given you enough of an idea. So, first of all, I'd like to apologize again for the absolute disaster that was my first pass at this, but hopefully now that I've shown you what I'm about and what I would like to do, hopefully I have piqued your interest enough to hopefully have you coming back at some point in the future. And even more hopefully. Yeah, exactly. Flew over your head. Again, I didn't go into much detail because I'm intentionally. I gotta save some material for later on. If I just explained it all now, I would have nothing to talk about later on. But, yeah. So, thank you all very much for watching, for bearing with me. Okay, before I say my goodbyes, Aria, Corpse, I was really hoping it would show up. Because, this is, you, I had a feeling, you're sort of my inspiration for this, your own music. I've actually been wanting to pick your brain about your own process. Because, for all I know, yours might not look anything like mine. So, hopefully we can have some good conversations about that later. But, yeah. Exactly. Hopefully, after the embarrassing technical difficulties, I've piqued your interest enough, and hopefully I can actually start making something of myself streaming. But again, I'm not going to be streaming for at least another week, because I will not allow something like what happened at the beginning to happen again. I need to learn what I'm doing. I need to get my shit together. And I need to actually show that I'm not just some meathead. But, yeah, I'd say that's enough babbling for me. Thank you all very much for coming, and hopefully I will see you next time. Just thank you all. I can't articulate just how grateful I am that you actually gave me a chance here. In spite of all the scuff that I fucking forced you to put up with. Just thank you 1,000 times. Thank you. And I hope you all have a very good night. I will see you, hopefully, sooner rather than later. Arrivederci.